Hello and welcome back to Old Yarn Vidcast. Today's story comes from Sivius by Hildegard of Bingen. The Trials of the Soul. Where am I in my exile? In the shadow of death. What is this path I am walking on? The path of error. And what comfort do I have? The comfort of pilgrims. I was to have had a tent, a tabernacle decorated with 5 square stones that shone brighter than the sun and the stars. And the stones were to shine not with the rising sun and stars, but with the glory of the angels. Its foundations were to be topaz with gemstones for its roof and walls. Its steps were to be covered with crystal and its streets paved with gold. I was to be the companion of angels. For I am the living breath which God breathed into the dry dust of the earth. And so I was to know God and to feel God. But what misfortune! When the tent of my body realized that it could cast its eyes in all directions, it pitched itself towards the north. Abomination! There I was captured and robbed of my sight and joy of knowledge. All my garments were torn to shreds. And so I was drummed out of my inheritance. My captors dragged me to this place of exile without beauty or honor. They threw me into slavery. They beat me with their fists and made me eat with the pigs. They sent me to a desert place and gave me bitter herbs to eat, dipped in honey. Then they laid me in a winepress and subjected me to many torments. They pulled off my clothes, striking me with many blows and setting me out to hunt. And I was made to catch all manner of evil and venomous worms, like scorpions and vipers, which sprayed me all over with their poison till I sickened with weakness. They mocked me then and said, "Where is your honor now?" I trembled all over, groaning in my misery, and I said, "Where am I? Oh, where have I come from? What comfort can I look for in this captivity? How can I break these chains? What eyes can see my wounds? And what nostrils can bear the stench of this affliction? What hand can anoint my wounds with oil? Who will ever show me mercy in my pain? May heaven hear my cry. May the earth tremble at my misery, and all that live on her have pity for my captivity. I am oppressed by bitter pains, for I am a pilgrim without comfort or support. Who will console me? For my mother has left me because I strayed far from the way of salvation. None will help me but God. O Zion, my mother, when I remember how I would have dwelt with you, then I look at this bitter captivity into which I have been thrown. And when I recall all the harmonies of music within you, then I can only consider my wounds. And when I remember the joys and delights of your glory, then I curse these poisons with which they are polluted. Where shall I turn? Where shall I run to? My pain is immeasurable, since if I remain in this evil plight, I will be a companion to them, the ones I knew shamefully in the country of Babylon. Where are you, Zion, my mother? What misfortune! If only I had not left you, I could bear this pain more easily if I did not know you. Now I shall flee these evil companions. Wretched Babylon has loaded me with weights of lead. She oppresses me with heavy timbers so that I can scarcely breathe. But when I cry out to you, my mother, in my tears, wretched Babylon pours forth a crashing sound of rushing waters so that you cannot hear my voice. In great trouble, therefore, I will seek the narrow ways, and so I will escape my evil companions and my miserable captivity. When I had spoken these words, I ran down the narrow path and hid myself in a small cave towards the north, weeping bitterly, since I had lost my mother. Here too I considered all my pain and all my wounds. Here I cried and wept, pouring out my tears so that all the pain and malice of my wounds were flooded with my tears. Suddenly, a pleasant fragrance touched my nostrils, like a gentle breeze sent to me from my mother. What sighs I uttered, and what tears I shed when I felt that modicum of comfort. I cried and wept such tears of joy that even the mountain was moved in whose cave I had hidden. And I said, O mother, mother Zion, what will become of me? Where is your noble daughter now? For how long will I be without your motherly tenderness, without the great delight and joy with which you bring me up? With these tears I was as glad as if I had actually seen my mother. But my enemies heard my cries and said, Where is our companion, whom we have had until now to do everything we desired? Look how she calls on the citizens of heaven. Let us employ all our skills to guard her with great care and attention, so that she cannot escape us. Remember, we had her completely in our power. If we do this, then she will follow us again. But I slipped down quietly from the cave where I had been hiding. I aimed to climb so high that my enemies could not find me. But they released such a sea of raging water against me that there was no way I could get over it. There was a bridge, but it was so small and narrow that I could not cross it. And on the other shore of the sea, the mountains were so tall and jagged that I could not journey there either. And I said, What can a poor creature do now? For a little while I was able to feel the benevolent presence of my mother, and I thought she would lead me back to her. But now she has deserted me. Where am I to turn? If I turn back now to my former captivity, my enemies will mock me more than ever before. I cried to my mother in tears and felt her sweet presence, but now she has abandoned me again. But I had been given strength by the sweet, comforting influence of my mother, which I had felt before. So now I turned to the east and set out again on the narrow paths. The paths were so full of thorns and briars and other obstacles that I could hardly make any headway. Eventually, with much effort and stress, I made my way through, though almost breathless with exhaustion from my labors. Tired and exhausted as I was, I at last reached the summit of the mountain in which I had previously hidden, and made my way towards a gully where I had to descend. But there I stopped and looked. Vipers, scorpions, lizards, and various other species of reptile were hissing their tongues at me and blocking the way down. Mother, where are you? I screamed in my terror. I could have borne this pain more easily if I'd never felt your presence before. Now I'll be thrown into the captivity again, where I was kept for so long. Where is your help now? It was then that I heard my mother's voice speaking to me. Run, my daughter, run, for you have been granted wings to fly with by the great giver whom none can resist. Quickly, therefore, fly over all these creatures opposing you. And then, with a great feeling of comfort and release, I took up my wings and flew quickly over those venomous and death-dealing vipers. And I came to a tabernacle, the inside of which was made of the hardest steel. And entering in, I performed works of light where before I had done deeds of darkness. In this tabernacle, therefore, towards the north, I set up a pillar of unpolished iron on which I hung small fans of various feathers moving back and forth. I found manna, and I ate it. Towards the east I built a fortification of square stones, kindling a fire within. Here I drank myrrh-flavored wine with grape must. Towards the south I made a tower of square stones on which I hung red shields. In the windows I placed trumpets of ivory. And in the middle of the tower I poured out honey and prepared a precious ointment of various spices, so that its strong fragrance permeated all of the tabernacle. Towards the west, however, I did no work, since that part was turned towards the world. But while I was occupied with this labor, my enemies took up their quivers and attacked my tabernacle with their arrows. Because of the zeal with which I was doing my work, I did not notice the frenzy of their attacks until the door of the tabernacle was filled with arrows. Nevertheless, none of their arrows were able to pierce the door or the steel covering of the tabernacle, and so I could not be harmed by them. Seeing this, they sent a great torrent of waters to throw me down with my tabernacle, but they achieved nothing with their evil actions. Without any fear now, I derided them for their failure and said, "The craftsman who made this tabernacle is stronger and wiser than you are. Gather up your arrows, therefore, and take them away, for they cannot give you victory you desire. Look and see, they have caused no injury. I have fought many wars against you in great hardship and pain. You tried to bring me to my death, but were unable. For I was armed with the most powerful of weapons. I brandished sharp swords against you and defended myself vigorously. Depart, therefore, and leave me, for you can do nothing more against me." When anger is about to burn up my tabernacle, I look to the goodness of God, whom anger has never touched, and so I become softer than the air which waters the dry earth with its sweetness. Then the virtues and powers manifest the force of their green vigor within me, and spiritual joy is mine. In this way I feel the goodness of God. But when hatred attempts to defame me, I look to the mercy and the pain of God's Son, and so I contain my flesh, receiving the sweet fragrance of roses from the thorns which grew up in memory of the faithful one. In this way I acknowledge my Savior. And when pride strives to build without a firm foundation rock and raise up his tower of vanity within me, and when he is about to reach a great height that none can equal, and when I appear higher than the others, oh, who will come to my aid? This is the ancient serpent wishing to be greater than all. It is he who has fallen into death and is trying now to throw me down with him. In great sadness then I say, where is my King and my God? What good can I do without God? No good. And I look to the God who gave me life, and I run to the Blessed Virgin who toppled the cave of pride of the ancient serpent. In this way I become a strong stone in God's building. And the ravenous wolf who expired on the hook of divinity can no longer overcome me. And in this way I acknowledge the sweetness, I acknowledge the sweetest good, that is humility, in the height of God. I taste the savor of unfading balsam and rejoice in the sweetness of God, as if I was inside the fragrance of all fragrances. In this way, also, I repel the other vices with the strong shield of humility. The words of Ezekiel: "Cast away from you all your transgressions, whereby ye have transgressed, and make you a new heart and a new spirit. You who travel the paths of the sun, which the blessed sheep walk. You who would persevere on the path of justice. Cast away from the knowledge of your hearts the study of forbidden things that do not befit the wisdom of the king. You think to soar to the heights of vanity, while you plunge to the depths of the sea, where there is no goodness, where the fearful horror dwells that does not know God. Cast away such things, and you will walk to your salvation on the way of truth. In your hearts, then, you will bear the glory of the dawn and the breath of new life." The end.